Welcome to welcome to our little soiree. I got the camera a little bit here. It is Tuesday night, and we just kind of do these fun shows where we just go live, and you guys can comment. We got people over here on Instagram, Facebook, and others, and we got you guys here on Instagram right here in front of me. So welcome. It's good to have you. I'm gonna move a screen here so that I can see you better. What I have learned. Oh, it doesn't do it on that. TikTok has this nice little thing where you can slide the panel over and then it brightens up all the lights so you can see it better. And when you're 65 years old, anything they can do to help you see things, because your names are like little tiny things. I know, Chrissy, you can see me, but it's hard on my end to see you. And then if you're over here on the Facebook or one of these other channels on here, make a comment so I can see who you are and know I see your numbers coming up, but I can't see anything from you. Over here on that's the nice thing about Instagram is it lets you see it. Chrissy, I would bring you on, but if I do, then the people over here on Facebook and LinkedIn, YouTube, then they can't see it. So then they get mad because they can't be part of it. So anyway, that's where it goes. So you guys set the tone of the conversation, or I will. Had some interesting conversations online today, and some great conversations on the phone. I have a lady who is a Navy. She's a Navy. She's in the Navy. Hey, Janet from Iowa. She's and she got long-term COVID, and she was like one of the first people that went into New York in the hospitals. When they were, she volunteered to go to Oregon, clear over there, right at the beginning of the pandemic. And man, she is still suffering with terrible things. And then the Navy is trying to get rid of her, like with a kind of get her out of there, so they don't have to cover her insurance and stuff. Isn't that horrible? So we got Amy Snow yet, miss you and Eugene. Oh, thanks, Ryan West. I appreciate that. Isn't that horrible that? So somebody, she's a mom and a wife, and she goes over to New York City to try to help save people's lives. And now she has spinal problems. She doesn't know if it's long-term from the COVID or from the vaccine or what. She doesn't know. And so that's not her story. Her story is just that they won't take care of her when she did all this work for them. And then I got another guy that we're going to be doing a podcast with soon, who is, I wanted to do this business. Maybe that's why I think it's so cool, because I told my wife this is what I wanted to do, is start a sauna, a business where you could go in and take a sauna and then do a cold plunge at the same time, because it's super good for your body, for recovery, for your brain, for lungs. It's a whole bunch of stuff, really good on your lungs. And so anyway, Michael's going to come on after in January and talk about, he has this is a Nordic spa where you pour the water on it. And he's going to come on and talk about what that is and why it's good for you. And he's in Portland, so it's not really a business thing for me, for my viewers. Hey, Marquetta, it's good to see you. And I talked to Marquetta's friend. Marquetta's over here on Facebook right now. She's going to come on the show. Now, Marquetta is deaf. And she is going to talk about a new law that Governor Kate Brown in Oregon implemented that makes it so that you have to have this is so fucking stupid. You have to have a bachelor's degree in order to be a translator for the deaf. They have trouble finding enough translators for the deaf. And so now you're going to make it even harder, you have to have a college degree. What the hell does it matter? What if you grew up in a family and you're a kid and you can translate, so now you can't go translate? It's such an Oregon thing. It's such a Kate Brown thing. And so Marquetta is pretty upset about it. So we're going to do a podcast, and she can read lips. So she's probably reading mine right now. And hopefully she knows that I'm talking about her. And she'll come on, and she can also hear. She has hearing aids like I do, but hers are probably better. And so she'll be talking about that. So I'll have her, that one. What's the other thing I have set up? This week, super great interview with a young man named Jameson Bauman. And I met him when he was like 14, 12, 10 years old, something. And he was so profound. We've been friends ever since. We just won a seat on the Coburg City Council. And he's going to tell you some pretty raw stuff. He's 24 years old, and like any 24-year-old man, or he'd like to have a partner in life. And in his case, he's straight, so he'd like to have a woman, and he just wants to hold someone. But because he has a disability and is in a wheelchair, um, uh, doesn't get that kind of affection. And he brought up a really interesting point, and it kind of makes me very much makes me sad, but I think this is a reality. He said that if he even holds the hand of what would be considered a normal woman, like because he's in a wheelchair, so someone normally held a hand, people would be uncomfortable with that, and it would be shunned, like maybe gay couples were shunned 10 or 20 years ago, and black and white couples or mixed race couples were shunned. Someone from the disabled community getting together with someone from the able-bodied community would still be hard for people to swallow. Doesn't that make you sad? I think it's kind of sick. But he talks about that. He's really open about it, and that's on Thursday night. Great guy. Also saw something. I have a question for you, if you want to answer. I saw it online. It was someone asking, the Supreme Court can't do anything about this, but should there be a federal law so that all states have to require photo ID when you vote? I know it's pretty split, I think. I mean, I didn't count them, but when you look at the map, they had red and blue, and the blue were the ones, it's not all blue states, but it were blue states that were non-photo or ID. There's some are non-photo, some are non-ID. Of course, Oregon, Washington, California, you don't have to have anything. You can walk in off the streets and vote. Other states like Colorado had no photo ID, and I think Arizona maybe had the same thing, and then everything else was on the East Coast. But yeah, Jed, I don't understand. Hey, Hezekiah over here in Facebook land. I think, yeah, he's on Facebook. Is a glass artist. And Hezekiah, I have the ball that you made me, the glass ball hanging on my Christmas tree. So I really appreciate it. It has a special place on my tree. So, but back to the ID. I think, why would somebody not want to put, what's the excuse for not having ID? I don't buy it that it makes people so they can't vote. Because what person can't get identification? I mean, come on. And I know sometimes the left tries to say that it makes Black Americans so they can't. That is such bullshit. Why couldn't a Black American, just like any other American, go to the DMV or you don't have to have a driver's license as long as you have that valid ID? It's just bullshit. Yes. Why is photo ID even a question? I don't know. It's like, here's the only thing I can figure out for me is if you don't demand some kind of identification to vote, it's because you're trying to cheat. That is the bottom line for me. I mean, there's no other reason not to have it, and the excuse that people makes people so they can't vote, that's just crap. That everybody needs identification to buy alcohol, to buy cigarettes, to get into some movies. If you go to the doctor, you have to show your insurance card and your driver's license. Exactly, Judy. So everybody needs identification. I would love to hear someone from a blue state who supports that. Give me a valid reason why that isn't the stupidest thing they've ever heard. Hey, watching you do a live. Well, thank you, Real Lee. Left always says it's discriminatory and shames Black people, essentially saying minorities are less than. That's what I think. I don't know anybody that in my world that I've ever talked to who said there was a problem. Everything else, it's. So why don't we as a country demand that? What's so funny is we hear so much about, we need to have fair elections, and yet you still allow that to happen. I would love to go to those states and have those leaders in those states give me a good explanation. I wish there was a way you could just force people, and that's why federally, somebody had said the Supreme Court should do it, but that's not in the Constitution. You can't do that. But the Congress could. Congress could do that, and they should. If we want the system to be changed and we want it to be fair, and we really want it to be fair, what that tells me is if you don't want identification and you don't require people to show who they are, you really don't care about a fair election. It's just bullshit. Hi, Berserk, and hi, Gray Street. That's kind of my whole hit on the thing. So anyway, I think it's absolutely insane and crazy, but whatever. What do you think of these drones flying around? Well, what do you guys think of the drones? Thanks for the email today. Oh, you're welcome, Lee. Um, I Yeah, I don't know what to think. I mean, I guess for me, with the drones, the government knows. I mean, God, they know when I walk out my door, and they know when you go potty every morning, and when you get up at 2 a.m. in the morning and have to pee. I mean, that they don't know where these drones are coming from. I think it's just a big bunch of bullshit. Now, either they're doing some top secret test, which, okay, but the problem is that none of us trust them anymore. You know what I mean? We don't trust the government and that they're doing the best for us or that they're doing the best for anyone. I'm concerned there will be an event. Yeah, I could see that, Judy. So that maybe they're working up to some kind of event. I don't know. Um, but it is crazy and how much publicity it's getting. Oh my gosh, that's what like everybody's talking about it because I think it's a fear of the unknown. You know what I mean? You don't know what's up there, and I'm sure a lot of them are fakes. Because there's a lot of drones out there. I haven't been. I was at a Christmas light thing. But honestly, I do not know how to demand anything on my behalf. My whole life feels like I'm asking for a ride, extremely uneducated on how to have any power over what's happening. I'm going to read this again because I think this is a really powerful statement on Facebook. This is Hezekiah. He was a prophet, just so you know. Honestly, I don't know how to demand anything on my behalf. My whole life feels like I'm asking for the ride, extremely uneducated on how to have any power over what's happening. I agree. Um, I think you're on a ride along. I feel like it's changing. Does anybody else? Hi, Sarah. I feel like it's changing a little bit. And I'm just gonna go with what I know. I think since Trump was elected, there's a power behind what's going on, and he's acting more like a president than our current president. What I'm really not happy about is Biden selling off the wall. I think it's just absolutely it's such so undermining of Trump coming in. So you're going to take stuff we paid for, and you're going to sell it on pennies on the dollar, and then we have to buy it all over again. So you're screwing the taxpayer while you're trying to screw Donald Trump. Two guys were just arrested in Boston for flying drones in unauthorized airspace, so the government knows they could shut it down immediately. Exactly, Jed. I didn't know that. Thank you. Did you guys hear that? I like this NASA. They did the same thing around Washington, D.C. a couple of years ago. They'll stop at nothing. And I think that, I know there's still people out there that think that we're conspiracy theorists when we bring this stuff up, but I think there's a lot fewer people. Because if you look at everything we talked about, it's all coming to roost. You know what I mean? Most of the cases against Donald Trump have been dropped. And everybody was, screaming about it. The felonies, that shouldn't even be brought to trial, and that'll come out in the end. But they're still hanging on to that. January 6th, the whole way that was handled, becoming obviously a bunch of bullshit. It's unbelievable, but what I can't figure out, this is my whole thing, but like you, Hezekiah, this what does it take for people to go? I've got a lady here in Montana. She goes to my gym and she's been bragging on me on my page today. God, she's just, and when I first went to the gym, I started talking to her and she said, she was a Democrat. And she said, what brought you here to Oregon? I said, well, the pandemic, because people were so crazy in Oregon about it. We just had to get out. She goes, oh yeah, I'm a nurse and this is ridiculous. And the way people handed her the mask never worked. I mean, she went on and on and on like that. And so I thought, oh, no, she's a pretty decent little Democrat. Then when I started, talking about Kamala Harris, oh my God, she came up me, just rode me. And now anything I'm doing, it's like she's just all over my ass, which is fine. But I just think it's funny that it's like, and then here's the thing I'm learning too. Well, I knew this years ago. What you have to be careful of on the left is they usually accuse you of what they're actually doing. Like, well, you never answer questions. Well, they're the ones who didn't answer the question. They always put the blame back on you. They're really good at that. I could tell you something that would really probably stir some people up, but I listened to Jordan Peterson a lot, and they did a study and found that people on the left are more likely to have a low verbal intelligence. This doesn't mean they're stupid. It means they have a low verbal intelligence. So they will buy into something easier, faster. That's a scientific study, according to Jordan Peterson. I find it kind of interesting, and he said it's one of the factors that leads people. He said the other factor they found when they looked at it was people who took political science classes, at least one political science class in college. And that's what I did. And that's when I became a Democrat. How about Nancy Pelosi? Trump rang the Wall Street bell and Nancy fell. I feel bad for it because 84 and to fall, that's pretty bad. That's because that's usually the sign that something's, I mean, a lot of people in their 80s when they fall, that's kind of the last thing. So I don't like Nancy Pelosi, but I would never say anything mean about her. I'm not going to say, anything about that. I feel bad for her. Nobody wants people to get hurt or die. But she personally, I think she's a very evil woman. Anyway, so there's just a lot of stuff going on. We may never see her again. Probably. It's probably gonna. Yeah, I'm sure they're gonna try to keep it quiet. It's gotta be when you have to be 84 and have your hip replaced. It's gotta be awful. I mean, really hard on you too. So anyway, but that Joe selling off the wall is kind of driving me crazy. And then I got a bunch of people because I for my hearing. So I'm actually wearing my iPods because my AirPods because they help me hear better, and I forgot my hearing aids. I do wear hearing aids. Anyway, the other day I can't differentiate between C's and P's very well. Those are in my Costco when they do your ear check, they give you a little, and it came through. So I was listening to an interview, and the radio came on, and I heard where ABC News and George Stephanopoulos agreed to pay Trump $15 million for defamation of character because Stephanopoulos said numerous times on the air that Trump was a rapist, and what I heard was racist. And so that's what I said, and then people, he didn't say racist, and I went and looked it up, and I was like, oh, I'm wrong. So I did another video saying I explained it. But they're just, oh yeah, you made a mistake, and it's like, I apologize. I mean, everybody makes mistakes, And then I was going to explain that it's because of my hearing, and I thought, oh, they'll just think I'm making it up. So who cares, But bottom line is, would it be any different? No. I mean, they've called him a racist, a rapist, a misogynist, a homophobe, a transphobe. Same thing they call me. And you know what happens is after a while you get called something enough, you just don't give a shit. Because those are people who are desperate and they just are trying to save something. And right now the Democratic Party is in a mess. And they're trying to figure out who they are and what they are, who their leaders are. I heard a speech from Kamala, and she was on there going, we're still here. And it's like, yeah, you're still here. Oh man, it's crazy. But I think Trump's doing the right thing. I like the people he's picking, most of them. I don't know all of them, but it's, that's not my job. As a person, I don't pick his staff. He does, and I trust, if I voted for him for president, I trust he's going to pick good people. I love his RFK pick. I love Ramaswamy. I'm growing on Pete. I love Pascal, is that his name? Yeah, I think it is. I just think he's picking some great people that Tulsi, he's got a well-rounded group of people that are not all Republicans, and they're all different, different walks of life, but they're people who can actually do the job, go in and straighten this out. Because if he moves fast and moves quickly, and I think he is I think you could see some real changes in our country for the better. And I know that scares some people, the ones who voted against him. But do you notice not many people talk about how crazy he is, and people aren't talking about that he is, that he's Hitler anymore. He's not, they're not saying that. That went away real fast, didn't it? It's because they didn't really mean it. They didn't really believe that. And look at what a lot of times I think what the Democrat Party does is they blame Republicans for the things that the Democrats are actually doing. So the democracy thing, they destroyed democracy long before. They were accusing Trump. That was the only thing they had. And then they said he was going to take away voting rights. So not one person voted for their candidate in a primary for president, Kamala. So yeah, that's democracy. Yeah, psycho foo, exactly. So they project. So when you hear the Democrats blame the Republicans for something, they're projecting what they're doing and what they're going to do to take the hit off of them and put it on you. And I think it's once you understand the game, then you can either play it or not. But like Hezekiah was saying earlier, how do we as Americans proceed now? What do we do? So we've elected a new president, we've got a new direction. But how do we feel? How do we get some of this stuff changed? And I think what you do is you push it on the local level. You know, you start when I think Trump will set the stage. He's not our savior. I don't know why people say that, and it's always Democrats do. It's not. You're not. It's not our savior. He's a leader. So when you have a good leader, they go in and they show you how they set a tone for what's going to happen. So then on the local level, that's where we need to act, is in our state legislatures, in our city councils. We need to go in and say, DEI is DIE. DEI must DIE. We don't diversity. Did you know that they did a study? I listened to a podcast this morning, and the guy did a study on DEI, and he said everything they did with that made it worse. It doesn't make it better. It makes it worse. So the very thing they're preaching that we need to do to bring diversity, equity, and inclusion is not bringing diversity. It's not creating equity, and it's not creating inclusion. It's making it worse. And the left will just say, you right winger and he's homophobe and all their little garbage, but they don't listen to other information. Probably that low IQ thing. Verbal intelligence. It wasn't IQ. This country is a business and should be run that way. I 100% agree. And then if you live in states like Oregon, Washington, California, you got to keep pushing to get things changed in your legislatures, because I feel so sorry for some of my friends in Oregon, because I can't even tell you, folks need to get involved at the local level. Yeah. And go, the first place you start, your city council and your school board. So get good people to run in there, not just right-wing people. I mean, people with the right ideas. And you go in and you start making changes. You go to the city, you go to the school board. Recently the school superintendent in Eugene, the acting superintendent, wrote a note to parents that we pushed out there to teachers, basically anti-Trump notes. And that's not his job. He's a school leader. He doesn't get to bring his politics into the school. But you know what? Nobody did anything about it. It became, people got mad, and there was a few people that, got upset. But that I know of, I asked people, I don't think they marched in on the city council or the school board meeting. And if you don't do that, nothing's going to change. You have to stand up and go do something. Even if you have a school, like a church meeting that night, give up the church meeting and go to the stupid the school board meeting and stand up and say, no, you don't get to use our district or your position to tell us what, and the teachers, what your politics are, and try to put fear in them that Donald Trump's going to destroy the world. But they didn't do that. You get rid of Merkley and the other Democrats. That's going to take a while. That's why my wife and I left, is because I'm 65 and I don't have time, but you got to start now. One of the things that the Democrats have done in Oregon is that they've redistricted the state so that it is what am I trying to say? They cheated, basically. when they redrew the lines for the districts, every 10 years you redraw the lines, and they redrew them. So you're supposed to have a district, like a district, let's say 21, supposed to be made up. If it's the country, you keep country people in there. So it's kind of like-minded folks, not all Democrats or Republicans, but just like-minded people that are going to think about country issues. That's the way it's supposed to be done, or it's urban issues, or neighborhoods together, that kind of thing. For decades, what Oregon's been doing is cheating and changing those lines around. So here's a really good example. I lived in Springfield, out in the country. So I lived out Camp Creek. My area used to be Camp Creek, Cresswell, Cottage Grove, McKinsey, up the McKinsey River, out Marcola, all that. Well, 10 years ago or so, they went in and redrew the lines, and they put the University of Oregon in with all these country people. Well, the University of Oregon district is college students who vote liberal, college professors who vote ultra liberal, and parts of the town. So those are not like-minded, people. So why do you do that? You don't have to be smart to figure that out. The reason they do that is to now all those country votes who had a district that had somebody who represented their ideas, it's gone. And so now it gets watered down, and they've done that all over the state. There's a district in Oregon, I can't remember where it is. And so you're also supposed to keep them kind of in lines of like school districts, or, the lines that make sense. They had one in Portland that the middle was here in Portland, and then all these went out like this, like starfish, out into other areas to get those country people in there. So the middle would wash out all the other stuff. That's why that's a big reason Oregon is in the situation it's in. And that's the problem, is because you've been outmaneuvered and you don't have a voice anymore. Clackamas County, Washington County, Multnomah County, they all are that's where all the votes come from. And that's why a huge section of Oregon is trying to leave and go to be part of Idaho. And actually, your state would benefit if you let them do it. They've done studies. There's studies, actual studies, and they did research with people. And Oregon, the Valley pays for rural Oregon. So you would save money, and it wouldn't cost Idaho anymore to put Oregon in there. But whenever I bring this up to people in the urban areas who are super liberal, then they scream and they say, well, then they can just go. And they've tried to meet with Tina Kotek, the people behind the Greater Idaho movement. They've tried to meet with her. She won't meet with them. If I was the governor of Oregon and I had 16 counties or something like that willing to vote on the issue of whether they want to go to Idaho or not, I'd be having a damn meeting with these people and finding out what the hell we're not doing to pay attention to them and why they feel so voiceless. And, here's a great example. Years ago, I did a story on Rome, Oregon, way over in the far. It's like maybe a couple miles from the Idaho border. And I had a cattle rancher, and she said, yeah, they came out here and told us we couldn't water our cattle in the Owyhee River anymore. They made us put up fences. Never said a word about all the man-made lakes we put out in the wilderness for the cows, but the elk and all those other species were increasing because they had this water now that the farmers built out there. Nobody ever said anything about that. So she goes to Portland to fight this in the courts, and she's standing on the banks of the Willamette River, looking up and down the river 30 miles, and sees a river encased in concrete and pollution. And she says, and you're going to come to Rome, Oregon, and tell me how to manage my river when you can't even manage your own. And that's the problem of that rural-urban divide, is you got people who live in the city who see a forest fire on TV and never experience what that's like. I'm doing a couple of stories on the delisting the grizzly bear, because there's way more population of grizzly bear right now than we need. I mean, that Endangered Species Act set up a standard, said this is what you have to reach. We're double, triple it. But these groups that fight it, they're very small, they're very loud, and they come in. And what they forget is, and you forget, what you guys forget is these are your public lands. So they're blocking off the use of these roads in these areas for the grizzly bear, which the grizzly bear are back, so they don't need it. And they're blocking it so you can't go into the public forest on the roads that are created out there for you to go enjoy your forest that belong to you, not just the environmentalists. They belong to all of us. And now, because they're locking up those roads, we have unhealthy forests because the loggers can't get in there because they don't have the right to go in there. Every time they try to get a sale to thin or create better bear habitat, which is what you think people trying to save the grizzly bear are doing, but they're not trying to save the grizzly bear. What they're trying to do is shut down the forest. So they're using the grizzly bear to try to shut down the forest. So now you got these loggers in small towns who, like in Libby, who are being put out at they can't go to work. There's nothing there's a shortage of logs. And you've got these bears coming down into town because they don't live in forests. They like habitat where there's meadows and things like that. Well, there's no meadows because we've allowed the trees to grow, and the loggers want to go in, and the wildlife biologists want to go in and thin some of this and create some land and some habitat for bear and elk and wolverine and all the other animals that need it. But they can't because these environmentalists keep fighting it, and they say they're saving the bear. It's bullshit. It's a super interesting story. It'll probably come out in January. There's 2 of them that I'm doing. And it's awesome. Kivok says, why do you hate me? I don't know, because you're just so easy. I don't hate. I don't even know who you are. How can I hate you if I don't know who you are? Unless you're an anti-grizzly bear person. Eugene Group's convening after presidential election. That, Chris, cracks me up. Okay, I'm not going to say who, but somebody I really care about. Same with global warming logic, exactly. But somebody I really care about, after the thing, they started having these meetings where people could come and just feel better and talk about how, and obviously they're distressed because Trump won. And so they're going to have these meetings and they're doing that. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, put on your big boy pants and your big girl pants and just, you lost. Now we've got somebody coming in, try to make it work right and do better the next 4 years. But it's always like this, oh, woe is me. I remember last time in 2016, I went to the swimming pool and a really good friend of mine at the time, she probably wouldn't like me much anymore, but she came into the pool and the day after the election in 2016 and she was crying. I'm like, what happened? And she's like, you didn't hear? And I go, what? And she goes, Donald Trump won. And I was like, well, yeah, that's why you're crying? And she said, yeah. And I said, whatever her name was, I know, but I'm not going to say it. But let's say Janice. Janice, a mother today found out that her son was killed in a drunk driving accident. She has a reason to cry. Somebody just found out that they have terminal cancer. They have a reason to cry. Somebody else just found out that their husband's leaving them. They have a reason to cry. The guy you didn't want to become president won. You don't have a reason to cry. It's perspective. God. I mean, as a Republican or as a more conservative person, I'm not a Republican, but as a more conservative person, I'm used to losing. And living in Oregon, believe me, I'm used to losing. That is one of the best things about living in a red state in Montana, is I don't have to pay for shit that the legislature comes up with that's so stupid and ridiculous. I don't have to listen to stories about, people crying about, about the horrible and spreading rumors and gossip about the president and what a rapist he is and all this. And I don't have to listen to all that stuff. And it's so nice because I'm free again. And that's why my wife and I are here. Plus, we love Montana. It's a beautiful state. But we've given up a lot of things, too. There's a lot of conveniences in Oregon. It's a beautiful state. I miss a lot of things about it. A lot of you I miss. I will admit that I've lost a lot of friends over the pandemic and my opinions and my voiced, that I just talk about it because I didn't talk about it for so long. Being in the news business, I couldn't say anything. You had to be impartial. Too bad they don't still remember that part of the job. And then the pandemic, and then Then it just blew up. The thing that brought me out of the off the fence was when Eugene started allowing all these homeless transient people to come into the community, and just it was lawless. Restaurants were getting broken into, people were stealing, bikes were getting stolen, all this. And I started speaking out about that. And then all of a sudden, all these people, that far lefters were, you hate the homeless. I mean, I don't hate the homeless. What I hate is that we as a community are allowing lawless people to come in and suffer, living on the streets, on drugs, and that we're not taking care of them. We're just ignoring them. And you call that consideration and concern? And now here we are, 6, 7 years later, and that's what all the liberals are now coming out with. I'm hearing speeches and people talking about how is this helping people? And I'm like, yeah, when I said that, I was a bigot and a racist and a homophobe and a transphobe and all this other phobe, any phobe you could come up with. And it's like, you make your bed and you sleep in it. But at least the bed that I have made, I can sleep. I don't sleep well, but it has nothing to do with my stance. I'm being true to who I am and true to what I believe. And I heard another funny thing today that is just such a funny people. When people say, I live by my truth, that's just bullshit. There's no such thing as your truth. There is the truth and your opinion. So you can live by your opinion, but it's not your truth. That's just some line people came up with to make it sound like everybody has a different truth. It's like, no, there's truth and there's lies. There's right and there's wrong. And I think we're back to a country that actually at least more than 50% of us believe that there is right and wrong, there is truth and there is lies. And you can believe the lies and that's fine, but don't ask me to do it. And then of course the third, wheel to fall out of my wagon was COVID, when I wouldn't do the vax and all that stuff. Because it didn't matter my reasons. If I have reasons for my body, my choice, didn't matter. It matters when you're talking about abortion, my body, my choice. But when you're talking about a vaccine, it doesn't matter, because I didn't know what that was going to do to my body. And so I have had cancer, and I don't put anything in my body that I don't know what it is. And I think I have that right. But people said, do it anyway. It's for the good of people. And it's like, really? Huh? So you're not in my shoes, and you want me to put my life at risk for something that I think you'll probably just get over. And most people do. Still, it's amazing. But this is the world we live in. But the good news is it's changing. And I think it's not Trump, but I think it's his leadership. And it's like people, I think it made it okay finally to stand up and say what you believe. And that scares people on the left. They don't like that. They don't like that at all, because they like to have control of the conversation. And as much as they say we need to be, like parachutes with open minds and lots of wind in our head, I don't know. It has nothing to do with that. So anyway, any other questions? Anything else, you guys? I kind of got on a little monologue here, but I feel better. It's therapeutic. Damon, that's a great word for it. Trump is a facilitator, but that's what a good leader is. And you know why he's a good leader, I think, is because he's a good businessman. And I know now solid, the left will go, oh, but he's gone bankrupt. Most people who are successful have gone bankrupt or lost businesses or failed. My life, the failures in my life have always led to the things that I do right. And that's what an entrepreneur is. You're willing to take a risk. And he's a very wealthy man and been very successful. And yes, he's had bad things happen. And he's not a perfect man, but I feel stupid even saying that, because who is? I mean, who else do nobody is. So, we have these high expectations of everyone else but ourselves. So we can go out and spend money on stupid things and, people have affairs and they do all kinds of stuff, but then when it's somebody in public office, it's all of a sudden they're the worst person on the planet, and I don't agree with that, kind of lifestyle, but we are a very hypocritical society. I love, I want to get the country in better financial shape as well. We need to, balance our budget. But how many of us have a balanced budget? I mean, if you took our house payments and our car payments, would we owe? I mean, are we debt free? That's probably the way you want to live, right? Trump used the rules available, just like Hillary Clinton did, and Bill Clinton still does, and Nancy Pelosi does, and Bernie Sanders does. So, yeah, they create the rules and they use them. There's also kind of a jealousy in our country, I think, of rich people, as long as you're a business person. Do you notice how people rarely, especially on the left, rarely bitch about how wealthy Nancy Pelosi, the Clintons have become, all off of, their public life? Nobody says it. Bernie Sanders has got a shitload of money, and yet he's all for the poor. Well, you got millions you can give. So it's always, but it's always the, oh, but Elon Musk and Donald Trump, and they don't like when they have money. But it's okay for somebody to use the political system where you're supposed to be a public servant, and they use it to make millions and millions of dollars. The Obamas, there's another one. But it's okay, because they're good people. People that are capitalists are not good people. So hypocritical. Either love them both or hate them both, but you can't bend one way and not the other. It's just absolutely insanity. But see, that's okay. So Hezekiah and some people earlier were asking, what can we do? Call that stuff out. You start, when you're in a conversation and somebody says something, stand up. Quit wussing out. I mean, seriously, that's what you have to do. Yeah, you don't have to be mean. You don't have to be like me, but be direct with people. If somebody says, I think Donald Trump is a rapist. Well, was he convicted? He's not actually a rapist. He wasn't convicted. And then they're going to go off on their tangent and you don't have to continue with them. But don't just sit there and ignore it and pretend like it didn't happen. And then educate yourself. Listen to, there's some great podcasts out there that are delving into some things that, nobody on the left's going to look for. And there's and you'll get the insight and understand what's going on. And then you have to also learn that, people love to throw questions at you that they won't answer themselves. And so don't get locked into those conversations, And then, like I had to do today, if you make a mistake, you apologize and then walk away from it. And people will keep harassing you because they love when people fall, So just keep moving on. It's just how you do it. Well, okay, my friends. That will do it. Now, let me tell you. So tomorrow night we do a live at 5:00 Mountain Time on TikTok. If you're on TikTok, it's really fun. And we do this, but it gets usually crazier and it's not as preachy, And then on Thursday, we release every week a new podcast. Oh, yes. Hi, Rick. Yes. Welcome. The Rick and Debbie Thomas friend. Then on Thursdays, we release a new podcast every week. And this week, like I said, we have Jameson. He's a young man, new city councilor, lives his life in a wheelchair. It's going to be really abrupt and it's really great. Exactly, Damon. You're right. Damon says, accepting responsibility is something the left hasn't embraced. No, not at all. And so we'll release that on Thursday. So you can get it on Spotify, Facebook, YouTube. Our YouTube channel is Rick Dancer TV. My website, rickdancer.com. You can follow us on any of these things. If you know someone who is looking for some, we reach a ton of people. So we do video work for people. We also do direct mailing for people. If you have any kind of needs like that, let me know. I have people that do social media posting for businesses and stuff like that. So we do a lot of that. The pendulum swings back. We would never have gotten into this mess if people hadn't been such cowards. There's a great freedom in speaking up and telling the truth. You may lose a job or friends, but it's worth it. I don't know how to say your name, Koirita. I 100% agree. My wife and I said when the pandemic started, she looked at me and she said, if we lose business, we're still going to stand up for what we believe in. And we lost a bunch of business. We used to had a ton of people. And they were too afraid to sponsor us because of what my reputation was to certain people on the left. And they can be pretty nasty. And they were. And so those people left. And yeah, it hurts. And I feel bad about it. I mean, not like I did it on purpose. I don't feel bad that they left because I feel bad that they were that type of person that they couldn't stand up for themselves, or maybe they just totally disagreed with me. That could be too. But I don't look back at that, and I'm not a martyr at all. But I'll tell you what, when you go to bed and you wake up in the morning and you know that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing and that you're doing the right thing, you do have a little more peace in your life. And a really good friend of mine once said, don't let anybody rob you of your peace. That's the one thing you can hold on to. And so I tried really hard to hold on to that. And for all those left-leaning people who hate me and think that they've destroyed my life, you haven't. Because you would not believe the numbers of emails I get every day. People say, keep doing what you're doing. Thank you for speaking out. Thank you for saying something. Thank you for covering that story. Thank you for being who you are, all that kind of stuff. So there are rewards. And you have to look at those or it'll destroy you. Yes, Lynn, I have people that help with videos. So you can go to my website, or my email is rick@rickdancer.com. Or my phone number is 541-232-3143. And thank you for that compliment. But you know what? Here's the good news. Here's the kind of the cherry on the top. This will happen for you too. If you stand up for what you believe in and stand against evil and wrong, yeah, you get beaten the shit out of, and it's hard for a while, but you'll find these moments where it glistens. And you know what the best moment for me was, like for my wife and me, because it's been harder since we've been here. But the best moment was when we sold our house in Oregon. We got into the U-Haul. She was in my pickup. My son drove my wife's Forerunner. And so Kathy, but it was just the two of us. He was bringing it later. So Kathy's in my truck, and I'm in a 26-foot U-Haul with a 12-foot trailer behind it, pulling everything we have in our life. And we drove out of our driveway, and we headed up I-5. And when we got to the Idaho, Montana border, and we pulled over and took a picture of us coming to Montana and being in Montana. And it was like we were starting over again. Like it's just us, like just my wife and me. That's the best day. There's a rough trip. We got stuck and it was snowing. It was January 28th and it was snowing, and we're going over 4 passes, from Oregon to here, going over passes, but we were free. And we were starting over. And yeah, it's been really, really hard. But man, I'd never turn back. I would never not do what we did. Probably wouldn't have bought the house I bought, but we felt like that was the right place. And maybe it was for that time. I don't know. I'm trying not to overthink things, because now we just want something smaller that gives us even more freedom. I want more freedom, But when we drove over that line and we knew, and it wasn't leaving Oregon, it was leaving us. Like just security, friends, people, things, for an adventure. When God goes to call your name and says, you can keep living like you're living every day. It doesn't mean leaving a state. It doesn't have to be that, but it means leaving an idea or something behind. And when God comes, he went to Moses and said, "You want to go on an adventure?" And Moses led his people in freedom to freedom. He went to Abraham. Abraham had a great life. He had pretty wealthy for his position, had a wife, easy life. And God came to him and said, "You want to start over and do everything? I'm going to take you on an adventure." And Abraham said, "Yeah." And it turned out it got real shitty for a long time. But he became the father of a nation. So I guess you have to kind of go, who am I and what is my calling and what am I really supposed to do? And then you love the people along the way. And sometimes you have to leave things behind. But I don't know. I think it's up to us, how much we want. I don't want to die and feel like I didn't try everything and scare myself to shit and do things that were scary and hard. And I'd like to do more things that are a little edgy and scary and hard. And I feel kind of trapped right now because I'm in a big house and I'm in a little town that I don't think is really the place I want to be. Nothing against the people here or what it is. It's, what it is. But I just don't feel settled. I don't know that you ever feel settled because I kind of think that, to be one of God's people, you have to be a traveler. You kind of are a nomad, His people have always known we all wander, but it doesn't mean we're lost. I love that saying. I just gave that to a really good friend of mine. But she might be on here, so I don't want her to know. We who wander are not necessarily lost. We're looking. But you know what? I'm not sitting in a fucking chair rocking my life away and thinking about what if. Instead, I'm thinking about why not. You're welcome, Damon. Thank you for participating in the good things you had to say too. All right, I should really let you guys go. I'm enjoying this too much, but it is really nice to just kind of have a conversation and think. I've been getting my nose in the Bible a lot more lately because I think I was kind of like leaving God behind. So I'm trying to restore that relationship a little bit. All right, we'll have that conversation another time. You can share this on your page if you want. You don't have to. It's not a big deal. But again, if you are looking for people to help you with video production, we post that on social media. We blast it out to advertise your business. Or if you just need content, on your website or something. And then I'm just starting this new aspect of my life, just like within the last week, is we're doing direct mailings because you can get a lot of attention for that. Like we put out a mailing and we can specify who it goes to. So if you're looking for something like that, I got a company in Eugene, Springfield that's working with me on that. So I think it's going to be great. All right. We'll see you guys later. I'm going to turn